So Frank, tell me where you are today and the significance of where you are today.
Brian, first of all, I'm actually on the walk. I'm in Hutchinson, Kansas. But as I mentioned to you before, for a couple of days during the trip, I had to go out and do some teaching assignments and lecture assignments with clients. So today I'm physically in Santa Fe, and I'm doing some of the miles that I bypassed when I was going through New Mexico because I knew I was coming back here to lecture. So right now I'm on the Santa Fe Trail, which is where you see me. And I officially today hit the 50% mark, so I'm halfway there.
Congratulations.
It's great. I can see the end. I can see Ocean City from here.
So you're feeling good that you've gotten over that big hurdle?
Yeah, it's interesting. I am, but I've had a stunning and stellar week across the board. As I crossed into Kansas, I've had some experiences, Brian, that will last a lifetime. I was in a small town called Greensburg, Kansas, and it's completely renewed my faith in the strength and vitality of people. Greensburg was a city that was hit in May 7th, 2007 by an EF5 tornado. And I had a chance to meet a couple of people, a 75-year-old and a 16-year-old who survived it. And the resiliency in that community was stunning. From there to Buckland, to other areas along the way, all the way up to Pratt and to Hutchinson, it's just been just a rewarding experience across the board. So this has been, despite the discomfort, a little bit of the temperature, the feet, my age, well, which I prefer not to discuss too much, but I am getting up there in age. I've just been overwhelmed by the tremendous attitude of the people I've run into across the board, not only in the United States, but specifically in Kansas recently.
Very cool. I think I saw this week that you encountered some prairie dogs. Can you tell us about that?
I did. You know what? I have to tell you, that was the one day where I got as many miles as I wanted to get in, but I didn't get done until later in the day. I saw some prairie dogs along the trail that I was walking, and you could see them as I was walking by. Their heads would pop up, and the sentry would take position to watch me, and they would start making this chirping sound. Then the next one would pop up. So I sat down and I started watching them and videotaping them, and after a while, they became more familiar with me, and they didn't get real close, but they got close enough, and they would start looking around and talking to us. So I took a video of it as they chirped about what I was doing, and so to speak. And then you looked at the different sentries. So I had pictures along the way. But what was amazing is on one of them had a very distinctive pattern. And as you could see, he must have been the sentry. He would run along underground and pop up 50 to 100 feet further down the trail, which was, I just thought it was absolutely fascinating. So I sat there for about a half an hour when I realized it was A, getting hotter, and B, I probably ought to get back on the trail and start walking again.
Very cool. Where do you hope to be by the end of next week?
By the end of next week, I'm hoping to be in Emporia. Right now, I'm actually between a small town called Arlington and Emporia. And what I'm trying to do is get and Hutchinson. And as I get through Hutchinson, then I want to continue along the way and get up to Emporia. And I'm going to need about another total of 7 or 8 days to get until I get out of Kansas. So I've got about another 8 or 9 days of walking. I've got about a 200-mile trek. So as long as I'm averaging 25 miles a day, I'll be heading into Missouri in about 8 or 9 days. So Emporia at a minimum, and hopefully at a maximum if the weather cooperates, I'll be heading out into Missouri here in about 8 or 9 days. Only thing I want to be aware of is I'm really starting to run into some weather issues. We've altered not the training, but the walk a little bit. I'm getting up earlier and going out, Brian, and trying to get about 15 or 16 miles in before the day gets too warm. It's been hitting 100 degrees, 95 to 100 degrees, and that's been, that can be a little bit draining. And then I take about a 2 or 3 hour, maybe 4 hour stint off, and I start back up again at 5, and I continue to about 8:30 or so, just to make sure I can get the miles in each day. But we're expecting some pretty severe thunderstorms. I am in tornado country now, well into tornado country. I've actually seen some of the damage that was inflicted about 2-3 weeks ago. And I downloaded at the recommendation of some of the local police departments. It's a tornado app. And what it does is once you start tracking your location, if there's a weather advisory, it'll give you a heads up that you better seek shelter immediately. And it's not always apparent from the clouds because it can pick up pretty quickly and hit you. So you have to be a little bit careful.
Yeah. So do you have like a contingency plan or something like that if the app alerts you that there's a tornado in your area?
Yeah, what I do is if it looks like it's imminent, obviously I don't want to put any first responder in jeopardy or myself at that point. So I'll typically attempt to get back to the support vehicle. If it looks like it comes up all of a sudden, they give you an idea, recommendation what to do, and that's to get as low as you possibly can, even if it's water in that area, so you're getting into something where it's really low to the ground, and try to stay sheltered. I'm watching the weather forecast very significantly, and unless I get surprised, I think we'll be in fairly decent shape. What I have found so far, and it's been a really heartwarming experience, if the locals see that something's coming up, they'll stop you along the road and offer you a ride. So I'm obviously, if that happens, I'm going to be very willing to do that to stay out of the way of any of the tornadoes. But as I said, right now, I haven't seen anything in particular, but I've been told that I'm definitely well inside of tornado country by about 35, 40 miles, and I'll be in tornado country for about another 250 or 300 miles.
Yeah, just been wowed by all the talk of the hospitality people have given you along the way. Can you tell us a little bit about some of that?
I have absolutely been amazed, and this town of Greensburg and Buckland will be a perfect example. People would stop me along the way and ask me if they could bring me a sandwich out, if they could help me out by giving me water. Did they want to have me just sit in the back of their vehicle so I could cool off a little bit? I see that on a regular basis. In Greensburg, Buckland, and areas around that area, Haviland, which is another town, Cullison, which took me all the way into Pratt. You're walking along, and normally I would wave to people, but this area is so friendly. They were waving to me before I actually had a chance. And it's almost like they sent a notice out saying, hey, by the way, you got a walker through the area. And people were coming up to me saying, are you the guy that's walking across the United States? And I said, I'm one of them. There's a couple of people doing it. And just very hospitable. I'd go into a restaurant. They'd all come up and talk. We saw the number of likes on Facebook go up by about 15% in a little over 3 days that I was in that part of the area. And I've just been overwhelmed by their generosity. When I went to church on Sunday, they asked me to introduce myself and let me know and tell people what I was doing. And so I was just been very, very pleased. I was absolutely stunned, though, at a young gal and a waitress in a restaurant in Buckland, at the Buckland Cafe and C-Store, which was a gas station. I was a little tired. I had done about 13, 14 miles, tuckered out a little bit, and she heard about the mission. And here's an 18, 19, 20-year-old put her arm on my shoulder, her hand on my shoulder, and she said, just have faith. It's important. You're doing it for the kids at Good Shepherd, at goodshepherdcenter.org. And she said, just remember, have faith. I tell you what, that was the adrenaline I needed. And I put that in my blog. Her mother was following me and said, by the way, that waitress was my daughter. And she said she was really enamored that people would care. And she was so thankful that so many people were on Facebook thanking and liking the page about how important the mission was. So, I mean, these are people that really care. I saw that in New Mexico, Arizona, but I really saw it here. And these were people that were devastated by these tornadoes. And their spirit of community and hospitality was second to none.
Well, that's a great message that we'll end on there. So thank you, Frank, for sharing that, and hope that you have a good week walking this week.
Absolutely, and give my friends back in MACPA in Maryland a great big hug. Maryland's the same way. These are the kind of values that we were all raised with in Maryland, so it's kind of like I feel like I'm back at home. But Brian, thank you again for your hospitality and letting me be with you as well.
Of course, pleasure's mine.